Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard this morning, this afternoon here on snowy Saturday in Alberta, whenever you get a chance to tune in. So what we're looking at today obviously is the fallout over Thursday and Friday, discussing John Gibson and the Edmonton Oilers. And I'll tell you this, having done this Oilers trick for as long as I have at this point, I will tell you John Gibson is no new name to the Oilers ring, and I will tell you that's why if the Oilers ultimately make the move, I can see them making the move. We've kind of collected some other players in that similar fashion. We'll discuss that. We'll discuss some ideas around John Gibson here in a moment, and we'll get going. But before we get there, if you are new to the channel or you're returning and haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I would highly encourage you to do that. We've obviously got pretty good regular Oilers updates here for you, and today obviously discussing kind of more of the extracurricular around the Oilers on a slow Saturday morning as we get juiced up for, I believe it's the Oilers and Rangers tonight, hockey night in Canada. That said, as well, if you enjoyed today's video and you're excited about the potential of John Gibson joining the Oilers, leave a like and let's get this going, shall we? Let's get to John Gibson's stats. Waste no more time, say it. John Gibson, right? He's been with the Oilers since, or with the Ducks, sorry, since 2013-2014. He's kind of played never really a ton of games. I think his biggest games there in 17-18, 60 games played. You see that 18-19 season, and that's what I want you to hone in on. That's where the Oilers were back in my day when I was first starting out doing this whole Oilers podcast thing. That's when they were starting to, talk about John Gibson as a potential for the Edmonton Oilers. And it kind of carried into 1920. And then you kind of see what happened from there. Anaheim kind of struggled through. I know there might have been talk in 21-22 as well. 22-23, we had enough going on there. We kind of stayed the course. And then last year, I don't remember John Gibson popping up, but at the same rate, those numbers really don't solve much. I think there might have been a thought at some point around when Jack Campbell got sent down to trade Jack Campbell for John Gibson because their contracts are somewhat similar. And then, of course, Gibson comes back this year. He's posted 3 wins, overtime shootout loss, whatever you want to say. If you know what the Ducks have been up to, you're better than me. You got way more time than me, actually. And then, of course, a 270 and a 906. So for John Gibson, respectable numbers as he's now hit 31. So for all of those clamoring, oh, we need John Gibson, this guy's 31 years old. He's old. He's slow. You sure you want him? I don't know. Make up your mind. 6'2" goaltender, 210 pounds on a $6.4 million contract that expires in 2027. So there's still 2+ years left of John Gibson, and you're going to have to pay Stuart Skinner this summer, even if you don't pay him much. So that's where we're currently sitting at, friends, with John Gibson. Now, what I'll tell you here is, like I said, I started off talking about how we've already talked about this several times over. I don't think I have any history of it here on the channel specifically, but it's something that I have discussed a lot with friends, a lot with other people, and I think that's why I don't have anything on the channel, is it's just that contract and obviously the move for the Ducks and all that has never truly made sense. And that's where I will caution you here again, is I don't know if this truly makes sense for the Oilers. There was word, I think it was reported, I can't find it officially, but it was reported something like The Athletic or something put out that John Gibson was willing to waive his no trade clause, come to Edmonton, and the Ducks were willing to retain salary for that. I will tell you, that might be all true and dandy, and if it is, great, but reread that with me for a split second. A star goalie, right? John Gibson has been a great goalie in his NHL career. Let's flash those stats one more time. Sorry, let's go here. How about a 290 goals against average and a 910 save percentage? We would take that in a heartbeat here in Edmonton this year. And obviously remove a couple bad years because of how terrible Anaheim is. But reread that with me and look at these stats at the same time, and then you tell me if that sounds believable. The Ducks would be willing to retain salary to help the Oilers acquire a star goalie who wants to come to town. See, I read that in reverse kind of, but that does not at all sound like something that is at all a possibility. Even if it is a possibility, you reread it backwards and it makes zero sense whatsoever. So that's where I'm not sure how likely this is, but again, this is where I also go back to what I said at the start of the video. And I'll tell you, the Oilers have been collecting players that we've been talking about since 2018, 2019, like Candy, Connor Brown, Kasperi Kapanen, Matthias Ekholm, right? Those guys were all guys that I was talking about back in that inaugural year covering the Oilers here on Dolynny TV. And for some reason, some way, somehow, they're all now current Oilers. Adam Henrique, add him to the list as well. I think there's multiple other situations. And I guess when you talk about Adam Henrique, there is some history here over the past year of the Ducks retaining salary and the Oilers getting a good player off the Ducks. Okay, maybe make it make sense. There you go. But you look at it from the pure perspective of the Oilers have acquired a lot of talent that we've talked about over the years. I think there was some rumor at some point that the Oilers might try and trade with the Buffalo Sabres for Jeff Skinner. Well, now lo and behold, Jeff Skinner's an Oiler. Just thinking about the rest of the roster, I don't think there's really anyone. I think Derek Ryan, actually, before he signed here, was a trade target with the Calgary Flames back in one of his final years there. So, actually, you know what? Yeah, this whole roster we've kind of been building towards since 2018-19 when you really get down to the nitty-gritty of kind of the trade targets we've talked about in these videos. And, end of the day, if my first John Gibson video is ultimately the one that cashes it, that would not be a bad time at all. But for the Oilers, like I said, you can read anything you want about John Gibson straightforward, and maybe it makes sense. You read it backwards, and it makes no sense. So that's where acquiring a goalie with a what? With a what salary cap hit? 6.4 for the next 3 years, this year included. That is, or next 3 years after this. I'm really not sure how to read that on Puckpedia, but that's a large hit to take. To have goaltending that is going to be 34, 35 when that deal is up. And we all know how the Oilers fans love their old goalies. Right? You get me there. So, obviously, we'll see what happens here. But again, I'm not going to get too excited about it because simply, you can get excited about it on looking on paper, kind of what you've seen here Thursday, Friday. But if you look at it from a lens of does this actually truly make sense? At this current moment, it still doesn't, and that doesn't even include what the Oilers would have to give up to acquire John Gibson from the Anaheim Ducks. So I look forward to discussing this more and in further detail as more comes available. But for right now, friends, we'll leave it right here. Again, if you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you haven't left that like on the video yet, do that on your way out, and I will catch you in the next one.